even know what the temperatures have been. But so I'm inside a lot of the day. I used to like day part unless I'm going out to get something to eat or something like that. But or like a meeting, like yesterday, I was like all the way down in past Tel Aviv,
How was the
which
meeting
is
yesterday?
like a yeah, it was good. It was good. It was good. It was I'm like figuring out different like I don't want to say fashion, but like imagery type stuff. So I met with this guy about that, and then I had to run all the way back to Jerusalem. So it was a mass. It took me an hour and a half to get to where I was going, and then an hour and a half back, maybe even a little bit longer. But in between that, I had a class with you. That was like out there, and then I came back because I had an event at my house. So it's this rabbi that I study with Saturday mornings. I learn with him Tanya, like Chassidut, whatever. I learn with him. We learn like for hours. It's not just me. It's me, him, and a couple other guys. And um, and I told him, when I moved into this place, I said, "Hey, I just moved into this place. I got a lot of space. I'm giving classes there. If you want, you could, feel free to, if you want to have a class here, because he gives like weekly classes. He's a young guy, younger than me. He's a rabbi guy. He's a really young guy, and um, and um, And so, anyways, when I was saying that to him, some girl came to him and just asked him like a couple of days before that, like, "Hey, I'm looking to do a sponsor a share weekly, blah blah. I pay for the food, everything. I just, all I need is a location." And he's like, "Okay, I'll look into it." And then I came with that point, and it just was like synergy. So last night we had like close to 20 people here. I wasn't here. I was only here from the beginning just to make sure everything was set up because then I had to go to another event at the Menachem Begin Center. And, Menachem Begin, big Israeli prime minister a long time ago. But a friend of mine who has organization was having like kind of like a conference. I don't know. I think it's like a whole like retreat. It's like a whole bunch of things going on that they're doing. But one of the things that they did was they gave an award to a lady who's like a really big influencer. Her name's like Lizzie Salaska. I don't know. I mean, I've seen her before. I just don't know like really like so much about her. Well, I mean, she sat next to me. That's the thing. Well, anyway, so they honored her with an award, and then also U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, was a speaker. And so, anyway, the guy who's the founder of the organization, or whatever, we've done a lot of projects together over the years. I met him probably like several years ago. I was speaking at a Tech and Torah event at Cisco Systems, right? So Cisco Systems has I'm pretty sure it was, yeah, I'm pretty sure Cisco, yeah, Cisco Systems has an office here in Jerusalem, whatever. And so I went, I spoke there, and his name's Avi Abelo. He was like in the crowd. And we totally just like hit it off. And I think he drove me and a friend back to our yeshiva. And, you know, whatever. We just had a friendship and we did a lot of content together, whatever. So, he's expanding his organization. And um, um, the anyway, so he was doing that, and so I said to him, I was like, Avi, I'm gonna come by, but I want to have at least some introductory FaceTime um, with Ambassador Huckabee. He said, okay, yeah, no problem. And so I went there, whatever, went to the event, and so anyway, I ended up having a conversation with Ambassador Huckabee last night, and it was great. And my main thing was, just really establishing a dynamic. Like, I'm here, I'm in Israel, he lives in Jerusalem, I live in Jerusalem. We're both American, that type of a thing. But one of my main focus of conversation, and we're gonna, and, he's really excited to have a meeting. Like he's like really into it. But my main focus in the conversation is actually, maybe maybe I have some pictures. I think you guys saw pictures on Facebook. I saw Otino like some of the photos on just for the viewing audience. Okay, random Mordecai pictures. Okay, all right. So I don't put my address out there. All right. Okay. So anyway, so this was last night. Um, whatever. I think this is the key point. Okay. So the thing is, so I was introduced to him as Rabbi Mordecai from America, living there. A lot of it owned um, me or people, also, I'm associated with or whatever. And, so we're going to meet again. And part of my initial focus, and something I'm just really passionate about, and some people say turn down. I say, when it comes to Mashiach, turn up, right? And so my position going forward, with the United States is basically there has to be, in order for the Abraham Accord to achieve its true potential, it has to be understood on the Temple Mount that there's equality for all monotheistic religions, right? All Abrahamic faiths should have equal access to the Temple Mount, and it should no longer be dominated by this organization called the Wach, um, which is a which is which is which is an expression or the organization is part of what they call some kind of Jordanian trust or whatever, right? And and so anyway, so they control the Temple Mount, right? And so United States, gives hundreds of millions of dollars in aid to Jordan, Jordan to start to look at the situation much differently, right? And to see that having equal access for all faiths, um, on the Temple Mount is good for everybody. And when you think about the objective right? Pushing. All right, sorry about that. Anyway, so that's the agenda I'm really pushing. And the thing is, you know, the dynamic of the Temple Mount. You know what I mean? It's like, why is the Temple Mount so important? I mean, for obvious reasons, of course, right? But the biggest concept of the Temple Mount is that the Temple Mount is not like a historical building, right? That's like there, like it's literally a place where Jews want to do sacrifices, right? Like think about it, like you got all the buildings in the world, all the great buildings in the world, the cathedrals, places, castles, all this. The Jews want to build a building where they can make sacrifices to God, right? That's what they want, right? So when we talk about rebuilding the base of Mikdash, what we're talking about is the concept of meaning that the Shekhinah dwells upon Jerusalem, dwells upon the Harbai, the Temple Mount. But that experience can only be fully realized with the building of the temple. And when we understand that that's connected to, Hashemai Haaretz, right? The heavens and the earth, right? And we understand this concept of like man and woman, light and vessel, right? And you just look at God's presence in this world. So it's just like from that standpoint, when we talk about the concept of the Beis Mikdash, what we're talking about is, what we're talking about is the reunification of our soul and our body. And not just for the Jew, for all of humanity, because the whole basis of the korbanot, the sacrifices, the korbanos, that the whole concept behind it is to say that the whole concept behind it is to say that we're receiving, we're connecting through making this dynamic. We're reunifying, right? A person commits a sin, they're disconnected, they come, they bring a sacrifice, they reunite. So we're talking about this concept of becoming closer and more unified with the Creator. Not just for the Jewish people, but for all of humanity. All of humanity should speak words of God. Right? You should have heard Mike Huckabee speech last night. It was amazing. So the concept is like, so the concept of the basic Mikdash is the global education system for the world to recognize that they have a soul. And their soul is connected to the Creator. Why? Because the person I'm wearing the same clothes, the whole thing, right? And so I'm wearing the same clothes, right? And so what's the unification then? Right? I go to the temple, I bring an offering. I'm reconnected to the Creator, right? But the point is, it's just saying that my unification with the Creator is what? Is it physical? Because I look the same. I have the same clothes on. No, the unification is with the neshama and the Creator. And because we would have to explain to everybody how it works, right? Why are we doing sacrifices? We have to explain what it is, right? And so the point is, is to say that the point is to say that the point is to say that the point is to say that so the promoting of the basic Mikdash is promoting that we all have a soul and we need God light. We need God's light to be able to be fulfilled. This is the basic Mikdash. So for me, it's something that I think is extremely important. And I built a relationship with the Temple Mount for years, right? I've spoken about it. I've been in public about it. A lot of people in the religious community that come from an yeshiva world, they don't like the fact that I go to the Temple Mount and promote it. To them, they see it's problematic because they don't believe it's time yet, right? But I've been able to connect to other schools of thought inside of Israel because the Torah of Israel is big, big Torah, and there's a lot of humongous people of Torah, like everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like everywhere, there's like humongous people, and so you learn a lot. Like if you're like a learning, let's say a learning junkie, right? You know, if you're on that, you're running around. That's what I've been doing for almost the last decades, just learning from everybody, learning about myself, learning directly from the Creator. All of it. And So yeah, so that's the concept with the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is the education tool of the acknowledgement of the soul needing God's light, and only through the Temple Mount can we have that conversation, right? Only through that combination of building and location can we talk about such a great thing, right? Only through building and location, right? And so through building and location, through building and location, we can achieve this ultimate connection to God for all of humanity. This is the basic Mikdash. This is what we're mourning right now. This is what we don't have. This is what we're not connected to. We don't have that connection. Our light, the vessel is not there. Life shouldn't be as hard as it is right now. But life would be so much better in terms of just on an energetic level if we had the basic Mikdash. People would be less suffering would exist in the world right now if the basic Mikdash existed. God's presence would be greater. More people would be repenting. Basic Mikdash. So that's that. That's the problem. So when people see, read about Jewish history, our history, and they say, "Wow, 2,000 years ago this happened." It's crazy. They're just looking at it like the fall of Rome, or some great castle in Europe, or some Arabian fortress. That's what they see it. Oh yeah, their temple fell. That was the end of their reign. You see that famous picture or that famous video of them pulling down Saddam's statue in Baghdad. I can't say anything. Baghdad. Anyways, bombs over Baghdad. So that that concept, right? At the base of Mikdash fall, and the world sees that, and they're like, "Oh, you know what?" And Ramchal, he's there talking about in Kalach, Chochma, chapter 16. He's talking about this idea of direct and returning light. But before he can get to direct and returning light, he's talking about this idea of the perfection of how the spheroids manifest. Don't take it for granted. Don't take for granted that the process of how the light reveals itself in such intensity to Keter and disseminates itself lower and lower and lower to Malchut. And by the time it gets to Malchut, it's at such a state where it's such a lesser degree of its original totality that it ascends back up to the heavens. And that perfection being the spirit. All lights, all lights go through this process of intense revealment and dissemination, weakening to the end, and then going back to its source. All lights. Now, when we look at the human experience, right? We look at that and we're like, "Whoa, death." But the way the Ramchal is explaining over here, that we have to relearn what did Adam and Chava bring to the world? Because they didn't bring in the world, obviously, of the world of the soul goes down and the soul goes back up because that isn't inevitable. This is the way the universe is designed. So what is death then? Arguably, okay, seems like, use the Orachim's language, that we can learn that death is just a perception of the continuum of the human parsufing, right? Because the essence, the essence, the sum of who we are a collection of lights. these lights come into this world with intensity, and they disintegrate over time or lessen until they get to the point, and they go back up, and they come down and they do it again to certain, I guess, expressions of the parsufim are manifest, but it comes cloaked in the soul. So when it goes back up, we just think, oh, because the soul is fragmented, that's the end of existence. Or and so I think we have to look at it differently, because if I'm crying, if I'm suffering because I lost somebody, it's because I'm not necessarily connected, maybe fully, to the continuum of the lifespan of creation, right? So anyways, um, this idea of direct and returning light is in that frame of reference. Direct light is when the soul, like I'm using that in the context of the soul, but you could connect this to any form of lights. The direct light is the light that comes down with that intensity, like a lightning bolt. And then the returning light is the same thing. It's like a lightning bolt, but it's going the opposite way. But it still is this aspect of revealed and unrevealed light. So that's where the Ram is holding at, right? And so he's trying to explain that idea to us, and he wants us to see the perfection of Hashem. Now, let's understand this idea of sinsun, right? Contractions, I guess, a way to define it. So this idea of sinsun is in the frame of when God created those original vessels, and those original vessels were receiving endlessly from the Creator, and a sense of shame set in. And when we say shame, we can't look at it like, I'm really embarrassed. I'm really this. That's like the most external understanding about us and our nature, that when we receive too much for nothing, we have a desire to want to earn it. That's every human being, Chinese, Asian, Chinese, Indian, African, whoever, any place you go, there's a sense of embarrassment from receiving too much. Going to someone's house, most people, now some people don't have those type of issues, right? But most people, have a sense of embarrassment going to someone's house, and eating their food. You know what I mean? It's a thing, right? So, so the point is just to say. So the point is just to say that that aspect is part of the nature, right? Keep so much, and I, you know, and that I had no choice but to earn, right? That aspect is what those original vessels. It comes from that experience of original vessels. It's a crazy thing. Next time you see someone embarrassed to ask for something, or whatever, you just should think to yourself, that should remind you of the original point of creation, right? It was to create an environment where those original vessels could earn this light. That's what they wanted, right? The whole purpose of creation is to earn the light that God gives us. That's it. Game over. Finish the class, right? And so that aspect of knowing that, then we can understand that once those vessels wanted to earn that light, they started to pull back, I guess, or lessen their ability to receive. And that space between the creator and their pulling back is what we call the original Simpson. Yeah. That contraction. right? And so that contraction created the space of a world. But this aspect of contraction is, what is the contraction? Is the concealment of God's light, right? And we knew earlier, he said to us earlier, the only way to connect to the perfection of God is through the concealment of God. Meaning that when we live in this reality, and we make certain decisions, and we get in compromise situations, or we see things that we've been through, and we realize, like, wow, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have became that, or I wouldn't have understood this in this way, or whatever. It's a very broad point that I'm making, but either way, the point is saying is that still you could see the perfection in God, right? Especially at the end of someone's life, if they live the spiritual life, at the end of their life, they'll be able to see so many things. A lot of great sages say great things at the end of their lives, and so that's where we're at. And so that direct light, or that light, that sense of shame, that direct light, as it manifests, he's connecting this idea of some of the sinsum, from the aspect of the concealed reality. So let's look into it. Let's go. All right. Okay. Okay. So we were on 9. How do I know? Because, see, this is where we were last time. Okay, 9. Okay, Vize. Vize Mar'ea Shalishti Hain Soft. Okay, he says this shit. He said this shit. Okay, so this is what he said earlier. He's restating. He's going to clarify, for the commentator at least. He says this shows the absolute control and perfection of the Ein Sof for everything, and is the goal of everything. What does that mean? The whole point of this image in the prophetic vision is to show that the spheros are not something outside of him. So he's saying the basic idea of this idea of the spherot is to understand, like, everything that exists is not, there's nothing outside of the creator, right? So you go to a store, everything has a label on it, right? Everything has a price tag, right? So everything in creation is an expression of the creator's ratzon, right? And so we understand that, and it reminds us of that. It's a sphere, right? Which is an element connected that's not physical. And so he says, for nothing exists against his will, but that his light shines in this way within the sinsum as lightning until it disappears. In other words, what is concealed in the sinsum is the perfection that was in him from the beginning, before the sinsum, just as it is now in truth. In truth, even in the phase of the concealment within the sinsum, or even deal with the present concealment, his perfection is really in control, just as it would be in the end. It's just atznu atzu kol hasfirot. So it says between one and another, the initial and final perfection exists within the Simpson. So that's an interesting point. So it's that idea of saying that, like, during that time when the vessels separated themselves, the beginning and the end were created, right? He's final within this sphere to exist. Right. So so the Centurion is not just an idea that, oh, well, this is where the world was created. No, but even the end product was there. When we talk about a future reality of Mashiach in Israel being close to Mashiach in this way, it's in the frame of the Centurion. It already exists. All of the sphere world exists, and they are the soul of the entire government. All of the worlds are for everything is included in these managers in these 10 sphere. And what is the goal of the entire government? The restoration of perfection. The Ein Sof beyond the Simpson. As at first, this is during the concealment. The government starts with Keter and does not until Malchut. And when it is complete, what is this to me? And when is it complete? What does it mean to me? The point is that the perfection which is initially concealed is now revealed. He said, this will be discussed later. All right. I think that 9 days. Okay. All right. So this is a little bit. Any thought reflections?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. It's just showing us the completion of Hashem. How everything is connected. There is no disconnection. It's a continuous chain. So, he's bringing out the verse of Isaiah 44:6, I believe. Hashem is the first and the last. There is no disconnection in what Hashem is. And the government of the world is all connected. So the future reality is now.
Yeah.
And the past can be um, changed by your actions now. So you're in all three. You're in past, present, and future, and it's showing you how that's capable. So it's beautiful for sure.
Okay, sure. Any word out of Houston? Was that one of the things with the astronauts? Houston, they used to call it space shuttles or something. Anyways, all right. So we'll keep this thing moving. But yeah, bro, this is heavy, bro. Like I'm just like, bro, like I'm saying these things, and it's like I'm like flashing into these worlds, and it's like because I'm like visualizing these things as we're saying it, right? And I'm like out on my porch, I'm like tripping. I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh my God. All right. So we'll continue on. Um, everything's good. Everything's good, bro. It's just whoa. All right. Okay, so yeah, so we're gonna keep pushing forward. Um, you gotta get through this chapter. It's a lot. This isn't Path of the Just. You know what I mean? This is like very heavy lift, very big ideas. And the thing is, it's like all the things that we're learning, it's like it's not like we're just learning information, it's literally changing us. So it's like every word, every concept changes you a little bit more. And the person that you were prior, whatever exists, that's the thing about Torah. Like it changes you. Once you take on Anita and say, okay, I'm gonna be more like this, I'm gonna be more like this, or whatever. And that person that you were prior to that would never be nonstop.